Has anyone ever considered owning a gun for self-protection? Well, whatever your answer may be, the events I'm going to tell you about may have helped shape your beliefs about guns. Do you remember February 16, 1988, 39-year-old Richard Wade Farley shot 7 employees at a Sunnyvale computer company. Evidently, he was upset about being laid off from his job. And do you remember, on January 17, 1989, Patrick Purdy raped an elementary schoolyard in Sacramento, killing 5 children before he shot himself to death with a pistol. He had a bitter obsession with the war. Who do you blame for these violent crimes? Do you blame the gun shops that sell to law-abiding citizens, or do you blame our poor criminal justice system? The real lesson to be drawn from the Purdy crime is that Purdy was a criminal who should have been in jail rather than let free to roam the streets. Prior to the schoolyard massacre, Purdy had been arrested for 7 felonies. Let me read you those right now. He was arrested for drug possession, illegal possession of dangerous weapons, receipt of stolen property, attempted robbery, criminal conspiracy, firing a pistol in a national forest, and resisting arrest. He was charged with 7 felonies, yet they had all been reduced to misdemeanors through plea bargains. 7 times arrested and 7 times freed. I'm not here to tell you about Patrick Purdy, but I'm here to make one point clear. Through the example of how poor our criminal justice system is, banning guns is not going to repel violent crime. Banning guns will only create a larger black market for criminals. Many gun control advocates have been fighting this topic for years, and it's about time they take a good look to the root of the problem. You're probably asking yourself right now, if not later in this presentation, well, how are we going to fight crime if not through gun control? Well, the answer to that question is as easy as sewing a button on a shirt. Our nation's capital arrests 40,000 people for serious crimes a year, and only 10,000 of them are in jail. The other 30,000 walk the streets, committing more crimes. The nation needs to keep criminals in jail, or maybe develop a rehabilitation center for these criminals to keep them off the streets. We need tough prosecutors, tough judges, and more prison space. Let me tell you why I chose gun control to talk to you about today. Guns interested me not too long ago when I went skeet shooting and target shooting. And just a weekend ago, I was hunting in Mount Ashland, and it was a sport. I could see the people I was with were very interested in the athletic side of it, and they were hiking up hills and going up and down, and it was just like something like someone would water skier, or someone playing baseball. It's a sport. Secondly, I have seriously considered buying a gun for self-protection after hearing about all these crimes and murders. That's how I made my choice to stand on this side of gun control. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to just give you a preview of what I want to explain to you. I want to explain to you the problem of why we have violent crime, the obstacles to the solution of the problem, and then the solution. The problem is that violent crime rates have risen dramatically, and America's law enforcement can't provide sufficient protection to its citizens for 2 reasons. 1, our revolving door criminal justice system releases more than half of the criminals arrested as they await trial. Studies show that 75 to 85% of urban violence is committed by career criminals, and 30 to 35% of robbery and murders is committed by persons on some form of parole, like release, like bail, probation. So because of prison overcrowding, the release of just 1 criminal results in an additional 187 felonies a year, costing us as citizens $430,000 a year. But on the other hand, it would only cost us $25,000 a year if we could just confine that same criminal, an expense well worth the added public safety benefits. Secondly, the U.S. has only 500,000 police officers. Dividing that number by 3 shifts per day, and adjusting for vacation leave and desk duty, etc., leaves us only 75,000 police to protect 250 million Americans. These numbers are wholly inadequate to provide individual protection to everyone. Whenever a catastrophe like a Purdy crime happens, gun sales skyrocket. Citizens reach to buy guns to protect themselves. Therefore, more law-abiding citizens are owning guns for self-protection. It says, studies show that 78% of all Americans say that they would use a gun for self-defense. And almost every nationwide study shows that while handguns are used in about 590,000 crimes a year, they are used to protect against 650,000 crimes. That information was provided by National Review. Gun control advocates are the obstacle to the solution of this crime rate problem. Gun control advocates are making obstacles for you as a citizen to own a gun for self-protection. But banning guns will only make a criminal's ultimate goal of committing a crime more promising. Let me explain that to you. Gun use by private citizens against violent criminals is a better deterrent of crime than our present legal punishments. Dr. Alan Krug, an economist at Pennsylvania State University, updated a 1967 study and found that when law-abiding citizens owning guns increases, violent crime rates decrease, suggesting a possible deterrent effect. These statistics provided by Time magazine will prove to you why. 56% of criminals surveyed throughout the nation say they are not going to mess around with a victim if they know the victim is armed with a gun. 60% of criminals say they are more worried about running into an armed victim than they are about running into the police. And 75% of criminals say they avoid houses where people are home because they fear being shot. And lastly, gun control lobbyists believe that banning guns or placing regulations on guns, like waiting periods to check the backgrounds of people buying guns, will not stop criminals from obtaining guns through other means. Waiting periods, as the U.S. Attorney General says, will not prevent criminals from obtaining firearms because 5/6 of criminals tend to get guns through illegal, unlicensed means. A criminal is not going to bother going to buy a gun at a store. He's going to go to his best friend's house across the street and borrow it or take it from him. He'll probably steal a gun. Therefore, a criminal can obtain a gun as easy as walking into a bakery and buying a bran muffin. Okay, now, I just informed you about the problems with crime rates. Now I want to enlighten you to the solution. We should not support a ban on guns to reduce crime. Rather, we should support to reform our criminal justice system. The nation needs tough laws that keep criminals behind bars. City by city, America needs to identify armed repeat offenders and demand just punishment. And they need to unseat politicians who oppose mandatory sentencing and oppose to build more prison space. We need to lobby for adequate staff, equipment, and resources for local police departments. And lastly, we need to retarget our federal tax money to building more prison space. America needs to place mandatory sentencing for criminals convicted of violent felonies. Place no paroles or probations for these criminals while they await trials. And finally, plea bargaining should not be allowed for these people. We need to recruit more prosecutors, judges, and police protection. And lastly, we need to restructure our court procedures to ensure swift, certain justice. To conclude, I just want to sum up what I said here in the last 10 minutes. The problem with gun control advocates is that they believe that banning guns will eliminate violent crime. But I've proved to you that criminals tend to get their guns illegally anyway. The solution to combat crime? America must look at its revolving door system of justice. Removing dangerous felons off the street clearly results in reduction of crime rates. But taking guns away from the 98% of law-abiding citizens who use guns for self-protection will not disarm the 2% of violent criminals. Again, gun laws are not going to prevent crime. They will only remove our rights as lawful citizens. Penalties against criminals need to be imposed immediately after a crime to preserve the innocence basic to our system of justice. I just want to leave you with one thought here. Gun control only means one thing: hitting your target.